This is a picture I did kind of in a comic book style, brothers and sisters, of Lori Grimes, played by the lovely Sarah Wayne Callies, on Walking Dead, and just kind of thought I'd do something different. So if you like it, remember to follow me on all the social networks. Season 1, Episode 4, Vatos. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Dead Nerd Nation, we'll call it. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review back from Season 1, Episode 4 of The Walking Dead. The last episode saw everything ending with Rick and Daryl, Glenn, and T-Dog all going back to Atlanta to the roof where Merle was handcuffed to retrieve him, only to find that Merle is not at the roof. Just his hand is there, and a blood trail, and basically it ends with Daryl, Norman Reedus, just going, no! You know, it's his brother, and he's clearly upset. So that's how this episode picks up, and it actually picks up very briefly with an exchange between Amy and her sister Andrea, and they're in a boat fishing down by the quarry where the survivor camp is, and they're talking, you know, basically about the different types of knots and lures. They're 12 years apart in age. Andrea is older, maybe in her 30s. Amy is, you know, clearly like college age, maybe 20, 22, I don't know. And that they're 12 years apart, and basically they come to the conclusion that their dad, because they were so different and so far apart in age, taught them entirely different ways of fishing, even though fishing was like his life. And he basically just made each one of them feel unique, you know, despite their age difference. So then we go and we're taken to the rooftop over there, and basically Daryl is just he's upset. He's flipped out. He thinks his brother is dead. Doesn't know what's going on with him. He immediately goes and takes his crossbow after going to pick up his brother's hand and then, you know, looking at it and dropping it. He immediately takes the crossbow and puts it to T-Dog's head. And if you remember, that's the black guy that Merle was shooting the obscenities at and the racial stuff, and wound up beating the crap out of him. Rick handcuffed him. At any rate, Rick winds up pulling his gun out, the hand cannon, and he puts it to Daryl's head, and he says, listen, he says, I will not hesitate. So make your move, do whatever you're going to do, you know. He winds up averting the tragedy. Nobody gets shot in the circle jerk of death over there. Glenn was the only one that was out of that circle jerk of death. And they decide they're going to go follow the blood trail. So Daryl goes and picks up, he gets a rag or whatever from T-Dog, asks him if he has a do-rag. And he picks up the hand, you know, puts it in his bag or whatever, and they start following the blood trail to find that there is actually another way off the roof. So they go, and as they're going through everything, they see that Merle actually went and cauterized the stump of his hand on a stove. The stove is still hot, and also they wound up seeing that he wound up bashing with one hand and bleeding, you know, loss of blood and everything, was able to by hand kill two zombies as well. So you find out that he's pretty much one tough son of a bitch. And then basically, you know, T-Dog goes and says, listen, we got to go get that bag of guns, you know. I love strolling around. He says, not that I don't love strolling around in the city of Atlanta with nothing but my good intentions, but I need a weapon to protect me. So they're going to go get that bag of guns that Rick dropped, so then they can go and search for Merle. So then what they wind up doing is they wind up actually going and getting close to it, and they devise a plan. Glenn says, listen, I need you guys covering me from this alley. Daryl, you stay here with me. And he sends Rick and T-Dog down to this next alley or whatever, and says, I need you to cover me. I'm going to run out, try to grab the bag real quick, and you cover me if I need to, right? So as Glenn goes and runs out to grab the bag of guns, Daryl, who's left behind by himself in the alley, kind of watching and covering out for him, winds up seeing down the alley this Spanish kid. Looks like a gangbanger. He's got his pants all low, and he's got his wife beater T-shirt on, and he's like, what the hell? And he goes and grabs this kid. He's like, what the hell? Have you seen my brother? You know, and he's looking for his brother still. He's clearly upset. This kid starts going and yelling, you know, and he starts just yelling out. And he starts yelling something in Spanish, you know, and he's basically calling for his buddies or whatever. And as Glenn goes to grab the bag of guns and actually get to them or whatever, he winds up coming and running back, and this all happens pretty quickly. Two other guys wind up coming in, two other Spanish looking guys come in and start kicking Daryl. They blindside him and start kicking him. Then all of a sudden, and then of course they're calling out for help. Rick and T-Dog are like a block away in this alley. They're running back towards to see what the commotion's all about. You know, of course now they're alerting walkers and everything to their presence. And this lowrider Cadillac looking puppy pulls up over here, and they go and they grab Glenn. Okay, Glenn winds up dropping the bag of guns. They don't get that, but they grab Glenn, put his ass into the car, and as the other two guys are running away, because they still have they still have the one guy or whatever, the one guy that Daryl was holding down. Daryl pulls up his crossbow and shoots one of the guys right in the ass, which I thought was great, you know. So the guy's hobbling because now he's got an arrow sticking out of his ass. They jump in the lowrider, they take off, you know. So now, of course, Glenn has been captured, and we have Daryl, just Daryl, Rick, and T-Dog are left, and they basically have this hostage now, right? So they go and they take this kid back there. He looks like he's a high school kid, you know, and they're trying to question him, and he's not giving up any information, right? And he's talking. Basically, the only thing they can get out of him is that G's going to hurt you. G wants his bag of guns, right? So Daryl's pissed off because he thinks that they know something about his brother too, that maybe they grabbed him, you know. And Daryl goes and pulls out the wrapped up hand that he has, and Merlin goes and flips it on this kid's lap while he's sitting down being interrogated. And he's like, "That's what we did the last son of a bitch that didn't listen to us or didn't answer our questions, right?" And he's freaking out. He's like, "You guys are crazy!" And Daryl's kicking at him. It's just a great scene, you know. It winds up going, and this is something kind of of significance during this whole thing that's going on over here, which takes place for most of the episode. It does go and flashback to the camp, and we see Jim. He's Dale's buddy that kind of works on fixing things around the camp. He's over digging holes up on this ridge, up in this hill, you know. And it's like 100 degrees out. He's digging holes. It's kind of starting to freak everybody out because nobody knows what he's doing. He's just working tirelessly and crazy and for no reason, basically. So he's questioned and doesn't want to say anything. Doesn't want to give anybody a straight answer. Shane winds up coming up there with, kind of a few others from the group, and they're all kind of trying to talk him down. They're like, "Listen, Jim, what are you doing, man? Come on, get some water, get some rest, And he's like, "I ain't bothering nobody." And he's just basically going crazy, and I don't know if it's the heat, he's getting heat stroke or whatever, so he's digging these holes. He eventually goes and kind of gets all angry after Shane tells him, "Hey, let's go sit down." And he's like, "Or what?" And he goes to pull his shovel like he's going to hit him. Shane has to tackle him, and they wind up restraining him. And basically he goes and you wind up finding out about his background. And this guy also, they talked about it in the comic book, which is kind of cool. He's pretty mentally messed up, man. His whole family was eaten in Atlanta, and basically the only reason he got away was because the zombies were too busy eating his family, and he was able to get away. So he feels all this guilt and hatred and anger, I'm sure, and anyway, so they wind up restraining him at the camp over there. And it goes back then to our three heroes, I guess, minus Glenn, of course, now, so they're not the fearsome foursome anymore. And they wind up going and taking their hostage, and they basically go and they get him to go and say where they're holed up, whatever. So they go to this thing, and it looks like this abandoned old building, right? And all of a sudden this, it's like this brick building with moss and stuff in on the sides of it, and all of a sudden this door opens up that creaks in this metal door, And they go up, and we see this guy walk out. He looks like I don't know. It looks like, again, like a gangbanger, like the rest of them. And he's introduced as Guillermo, right? And he basically goes and tells him. He says, because Rick says, "Listen, I got one of your guys. You got one of my guys. And he says, "Well, what about the compensation for my guy's pain and suffering? What about Felipe got shot in the ass? And Rick says, "Listen, this, anger welled up, it was in the heat of the moment. Mistakes were made on both sides." He goes, "But here's the deal. I'm going to give you your guy, you're going to give me mine, and we're going to leave." And G says, "No, how about that bag of guns?" And he says, "You mean my bag of guns?" And he says, "No, nobody's name on it. Anybody could say it. It was laying in the middle of the street, right?" And he wants some of the guns. So what they wind up doing then is he says, "Well, we could just shoot you right here." That's what that G says. And then they go and they show that T-Dog has he's got the rifle, like a sniper rifle, and he's up, and he's up on top of another building, and he's basically aiming right at Guillermo. And he's like, "We can end all this right now, too." So this G winds up telling me, he says, "Listen, you go and you either come back with my bag of guns, or you come locked and loaded and ready to fight, right, and have this big shootout." So they go back and talk about things, and they start. And Rick says, "Hey, listen, you guys don't got to stay with me, Daryl and T-Dog and everything." And they're like, "Yeah." And T-Dog's like, "What am I going to tell your family, right? I just got you back." So they're all locking and loading and getting all the guns loaded up and everything, and sticking pistols, like straight out of like an old '80s action movie, right, like some Rambo shit. And the kid's like, he's like, "What are you guys doing? Just give G the guns, And he's like, "Nope, he said to come locked and loaded, right?" So they go in there. He goes, we're prepared to die. So they come back there, and they're let into the place, and they walk in, and they got the gun, they got a shotgun to the back of the kid's head or whatever they got for their hostage. And they come in, and I forgot to mention too earlier, they actually brought Glenn out and showed him up on the top of the roof. He was, and he was blindfolded and gagged or whatever with his hands behind his back, and it looked like he was scared. So they go into this place, and they're ready to go, right? And this G goes and he starts talking his shit again. And this is where we go and we find out about people that actually talk and people that, when the talking part's over, there's people that act, right? And Rick and Daryl and T-Dog, they're ready to act, right? This guy G, he's going to keep talking. He's hoping that his words will strike fear into you and that'll get what he wants, right? So he tells him, he says, I told you to bring my guns and this and that. And then Rick's like, yeah, or you said to come locked and loaded. We're here. We're ready to go. It's basically like, who's going to die first, right? So then this little old grandma comes walking out, and she's like, Felipe, where's Felipe? And then she's just like, she thinks that Rick's there because he's all dressed in his cop uniform. He's got his hat and everything, on his sheriff stuff on. And she's like, are you here for my son Felipe? She thinks he's here to arrest Felipe. And he's like, so Rick goes and he realizes there's more than meets the eye going on over here, And he says, no, ma'am, there's no problem. Your son's helping us find a missing person. Maybe you saw him. He's an Asian fellow by the name of Glenn. Or no, she says his name is Glenn, And she goes, oh, the Asian boy? And he says, yes, So they wind up walking him in there, and you found that these guys were full of shit. I mean, they're a bunch of gangbangers, the Vatos, right? And they walk into this place and they find out that it's actually like an old folks home, like a retirement home. We come to find out when Rick and this G are talking that G was actually the janitor of the place, and Felipe, the guy who got shot in the ass, the other gangbanger with an arrow, and he's all right. He just, his ass swell up a little bit, he'd be okay. But, that basically he was one of the nurses there, and that when the shit hit the fan over here, everybody basically bolted and left. But the old people can't leave, right? A lot of them are on wheelchairs, on respirators, need assistance to the bathroom. So it's pretty cool. This episode was actually written by Robert Kirkman, and he's the guy who wrote the comic book. And it was pretty neat because it was obviously something where he got a chance to kind of do a do-over, so to speak, and maybe put an idea that he had in that never originally made it into the comic books, because this was not in the comic books, this whole thing with these Vatos. But we find out that basically they go and they send some of these gangbanger guys out, the Vatos. They're basically, most of them are relatives, or friends or whatever of these older people that they're taking care of. They work on the cars. They go out and try to scavenge for food supplies. They boarded and welded up all the windows and doors except for that main entrance. And basically, try to keep these people protected as long as they can. Now, this is within the first few months of the zombie apocalypse and the outbreak. I don't know if they can last, beyond, who knows how much beyond that. But like I said, it was pretty cool to see that these guys were doing this. So basically, they wind up going, it was a big misunderstanding type of thing, and G's still trying to talk big, and he says, oh, yeah, we would, and Rick's like, what is your problem? We would have killed you. And then G says to him, he says, oh, yeah, and we would have fought back, too. Wouldn't be the first time we had to do it, either. They didn't want to actually fight, but they were trying to act all hard because he needs more guns and protection. So Rick winds up leaving them with some guns and some ammo. As they're walking away, even Daryl's like, why the hell did you leave them with half our guns? He's like, it wasn't even hardly half, and he basically is like, they're doing a good thing there, so we're going to help them out, They go to get back to now they're reunited, of course, the four. You got Glenn, T-Dog, Daryl, and Rick. They're reunited. They go to get back to the truck, and the truck is gone. And they're like, oh, shit, they suspect that Merle took it. Till this day, I don't know if Merle did take it or not, but Daryl basically says he's going to unleash his vengeance. He's going to be pissed, right? He's going to come back to the camp. So we go back to the camp, and we see that Jim has been tied up and restrained or what have you, and he talks a little bit back and forth about how he's okay now. He didn't really know what was going on. He wasn't in his right mind. He was having some kind of dream, or some kind of dream told him to do this. He doesn't know why, but that's why he was digging the holes, whatever, right? But Amy and Andrea have gotten back, and they're going to have a nice dinner that night. They're going to have a big old fish fry because they caught a ton of fish, right? So later on that night, they're all sitting around. They're going to have some food, and they're all excited and everything like that. Andrea goes and gives Amy this birthday present that she got back from the second episode. I don't even know if I mentioned it, but it was nice. She was counting down the days, and wound up giving it to her. And Amy gets up to go to the bathroom, right? And this was cool because this was a scene that was also in the comic books, and it was really neat, I think, to be portrayed in the actual scene in a TV show, because Amy goes to go to the RV to go pee in the bathroom in there, and as she's coming out and goes to close the door, there's a zombie right there, right? And just like in the comic, same thing happens. A zombie lunges forward, grabs her, and I mean just tears into her and just takes her ass out. And Andrea's screaming because that's her sister, obviously. Prior to that, we saw one of the zombies go and get that scumbag husband that Shane almost beat to death, that Ed Peltier. His face was like brown and yellow, and he was all fucked up and everything like that from Shane beating him. Well, the zombie wound up getting into the back of the tent or whatever. He thought it was somebody coming to bother him. He's like, you get now. And he got tore up too. So everybody's freaking out. There's a ton of these zombies. I don't know, maybe a dozen, 2 dozen. Nobody knows where the hell they came from. And remember, they don't have much to protect them. Shane's got a shotgun, and then Dale's got a rifle. So of course, they're caught unawares. They're all sitting around a campfire. So these things are coming in, and Shane's trying to shoot them, and people are trying to hit them. They're trying to protect the kids. There's complete chaos and mass panic going on. While this is all happening, our fearsome foursome over there with all the weapons, the bag of guns, are running up sprinting up the mountain, thinking that Merle got there first or whatever. And until this day, we don't know if maybe Merle lured a bunch of zombies, got them into the back of that truck, and then dumped them there. I mean, I don't know, or if they just wandered up, wandering rove of zombies, what have you. But all hell's breaking loose. People are getting bit, hurt. They're trying to drop them. Luckily, Rick and Daryl and Glenn and T-Dog get back, just in time with the guns and are pretty much able to overwhelm and turn the tides back in their favor. And it's really just kind of cool with the action scenes, man. Just the way they're, blowing this zombie's head off, and this one gets shot and stabbed in the face. And, but ultimately they take some losses because of it. So that they do wind up getting there in time with, I guess you'd say, minimal loss of life. But really any loss of life is bad, And Robert Kirkman, I read too, was really excited to have written this particular episode, because this is the first episode in which anybody other than like a zombie, like a human being, actually dies, like somebody in in their group, in their camp and whatnot. So it was really kind of a powerful thing for him, I guess, too. And it's really kind of a powerful moment as well, because we're left with, the ending of the episode kind of closes up with Andrea basically crying and holding Amy in her arms, her younger sister. And she's, being 12 years older than her, she's probably like a mother figure. I mean, I have 5 younger brothers and sisters, and a couple of the younger ones, I mean, I feel almost like I'm a parent to them and not an older brother. So I definitely can, kind of feel where she was coming from there. It's just a really touching, moving scene, and saddening, disheartening, I guess, as well. And then you go and you see that Jim, who was digging the holes earlier, he says, "Now I know why I was digging the holes." And he's basically insinuating like he had a dream that basically everybody was dead, or there was a bunch of people that died, and he had to dig the holes for graves. So that's how the episode leaves off. And I mean, this is really, really good. Even though this is a 6-episode season, which when this first came out, my wife and I weren't aware of. We were just excited for the next week and the next week. And we were used to watching regular television, CBS, NBC, Fox type shows, ABC, and those are like 22 to 24 episode seasons. So certainly a 6-episode season, and then having to wait a whole nother year was terrible. But anyway, I guess that all in all, it's very fun. I've been trying to keep up and get these reviews out there before the season 4 starts up. So certainly let me know what you think, brothers and sisters, in the comments down below. The episode question that I have, that I hope people watch and answer in the comments again, is in something like this, in the apocalypse, is it better to be somebody like this G, who is good with his mouth, basically, he's quick talking, and he probably intimidates a lot of people into thinking that they have to do what he wants to. So is it better to be a talker, or is it better to be a man of action like Rick? Rick was basically like, I have a family and everything else, but he was completely willing to go there and die to get his man back. Because Glenn saved him earlier. And even when Daryl said, he's like, oh yeah, it's just one Chinaman, Rick said, yeah, you know what? That Chinaman went and saved my life. He didn't have to. I was just a guy in a tank, and he stopped and risked his life to help me. So he'll put his ass on the line for you. So, feel free to leave your comments down below. Hit the like button if you think that I deserve it. And then, of course, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll look forward to catching you in the next one, nation.
Remember, brothers and sisters, to share, subscribe, spread the word of the nation to others. And of course, if you like watching the videos, watching them is always much appreciated. Have a nice day.